It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. Great to have you in studio with us today. March is, I'm going to say this right, it's the Archaeology and Heritage Awareness Month, right?
That's right.
I'm right about that. Okay, so we're going to have several shows over the next month that's going to talk about just local archaeology, the people that used to live here and inhabit the area, where you can go find those locations and stuff like that. And we're going to kick it off today. We're going to be talking mostly about Tuzigoot National Monument today, which is kind of blended in with Montezuma Castle. And we have time for that. We'll kind of explain more about that. But Laura Barron-Burkhardt is in studio. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And you are a guide out at Tuzigoot.
I am. I'm a park guide. It's kind of like a park ranger. And part of my job is just, I'm in the visitor center a lot. I'm answering questions about the dwellings around the area. I also do formal talks a few times a week, kind of like a little lecture, a little lesson about the prehistory of this area. And then I get to do a lot of stuff online. I update our website. I do a little bit of social media. So it's a fun job.
It's a busy job. A little bit of everything, huh?
Yeah.
Tuzigoot National Monument's located in Clarkdale.
It is.
And I think some folks know it's there and others don't know it's there. I mean, you can drive out to Clarkdale on the old road. We were talking about how the bypass kind of changed the route out to Clarkdale.
It did.
You used to have to drive through Old Town Cottonwood, and as you went through Old Town Cottonwood, you'd head out to Clarkdale, and it's right there on the right-hand side.
It is.
And you can actually see it from the road.
You can. And the walls of the dwelling blend in a little bit with the color, the natural color of the hills. So I have to be honest, the first time I drove past it, I drove past it about 3 times and I didn't even see it until I turned down Tuzigoot Road and I'm approaching this hill and it's bald on top and I'm thinking, what is that? And it's the dwelling itself.
It's pretty amazing because you can see it from the road. Once you know where it is, you can see it from the road quite clearly. It's very large.
Yeah.
It's a big place. And I've always been curious about the land around it because the land around it is very manicured as well, quite flat it seems.
Yes, yeah. So the land around it, you'll see those flat areas, and it looks like it has very young vegetation on it. And for those residents that have been around for over 10 years, back in 2006, those used to be mine tailings. They were left over from the mining industry, and in 2006 they were covered over with topsoil, and then they planted native grasses and shrubs on top to kind of stabilize the soil, which helped out the whole community. It really helped out us. It makes it look nice and natural. But we also don't get giant clouds of orange dust anymore coming from the
ground always did have that kind of a yellow tinge to it. But it's still still a part of our history, part of our past, and we get a lot of questions at Tuzigoot about the mining history. So it's a great way to segue into that part of Arizona's history too. Well, let's go back in time. Take us back in time. When was Tuzigoot found?
Well, Tuzigoot has always been there. It's always been part of the landscape. When people stopped living at Tuzigoot, it was sort of left to deteriorate on its own. And after a while, the bottom half of the rooms, dirt swept in and buried the bottom half of the rooms. And then the top half of the rooms, the clay started to wash away in between the rocks, and it sort of became just a giant pile of rocks. And so if you weren't looking hard enough, you would just think that there's a giant pile of rocks on top of a hill. But ever since pioneers have been living in central Arizona, people have always been aware that it's there, but it's never just been something of significance. But in 1933, excavation started on Tuzigoot by 2 graduate students from University of Arizona. Last names Kaywood and Spicer. And they were able to excavate and hire a crew with WPA money, Works Progress Administration. And they when they pulled back the rubble and started to dig away, they found a dwelling that, when it was completely built, it had 110 rooms.
Oh, wow.
And it became significant enough that the local community decided to lobby for a national monument, because not only would it preserve this amazing dwelling, but it would also be great for tourism for the area, bring in people from all over the state, all over the Southwest.
They were.
Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of what national monuments do. They serve a few purposes that way.
Local treasures that we preserve,
right,
to bring in other people to show.
Right.
Check out this. Look at our local treasures we have.
Yeah, it's kind of a win-win, really. Yeah.
Okay, so that was in the 1930s. It must have taken some time to excavate, because I didn't realize Tuzigoot had 110 rooms. That's sizable.
Right, and that's the estimate of when it was fully constructed. I think it has 87 base rooms, and then some of them were two-story.
Two-story,
yeah.
Wow.
So it took 2 years to excavate, and then when it was becoming clear that it'd become a national monument, they built the visitor center that's there, and it became a national monument in 1939.
I'm willing to bet these guys didn't just find rocks and dirt when they excavated this thing. It's
Right.
got to have all kinds of treasures in it.
Right. So since it did look just kind of like a pile of rocks, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, pot hunting, looting was everywhere. People would take artifacts from dwellings and try to sell them. Some people, it was with good intention, they would take artifacts out of dwellings and send them to museums on the East Coast, because not everybody could afford to come out to Arizona to see all these great sites.
Sure.
So when the Antiquities Act was established in 1906, that all stopped. If a site was on federal land, you couldn't take anything from it. And so when the beauty about Tuzigoot, as opposed to Montezuma Castle, that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, so people were up there taking things all the time, is Tuzigoot hid itself. And
isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Here it is sitting on this big hill,
right,
with nothing around it.
Right.
But it's hidden because it looks just like a knoll.
Right, and so as they started to excavate, they found jars that are, I can't get my arms around. They're huge, and they had to piece those back together. And they found pottery from not only from the local tribe, but also from tribes that they traded with. Jewelry, baskets. They found arrowheads, just all kinds of evidence of life at that village, and that really helped archaeologists put together the pieces of the story of the people that live there.
Let's take our first break already.
Okay.
Tuzigoot National Monument, located in Clarkdale. Phone number is 567-3322. That's going to take you to Montezuma Castle. But Montezuma Castle and Tuzigoot are together. Laura Van Burkhardt in studio today. Stick around, Countywide, back in just a couple minutes.
think getting dumped by text is harsh. Try getting dumped by a tennis ball. My ex-owner drove me out to the woods, yelled fetch, and by the time I bought the ball back, he was gone. Yeah, I was pissed. But the folks at the shelter helped me let go of my anger. I learned coping skills, like taking it to the hole. Boom! Now I'm ready to fetch again. But how about I throw and you run and get it?
Dad's home! The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Marie, you have prediabetes.
Prediabetes? I don't have time to eat right or exercise. I'm a busy mom.
Oh, you're a busy mom.
Yeah.
This is great news. Busy moms never get prediabetes.
Wait, what?
Let me just... Yeah, this is all the people at risk for prediabetes, and way over here, busy moms. No?
Welcome back to Countywide, talking with Laura Van Burkhart today from Tuzigoot National Monument. Arizona's Archaeology and Heritage Awareness Month is throughout the month of March. There's all kinds of events and tours. There's a star party, Tuzigoot Timeline Walk. I'm looking at this Walk with an Archaeologist. There's just all kinds of things going on throughout the month of March at Tuzigoot, Montezuma Castle, the Verde Valley Archaeology Center's got stuff going on. I'm sure there's stuff on the Coconino National Forest we'll be in later in March to talk about some of the local heritage as well. So, yeah, it's really going to be, I think, a great month of shows to talk about our local history. And let's do that. Let's talk local history. Take us back in time again, because we have to. It's Tuzigoot National Monument, for Pete's sake.
Sure.
But when were the people there, and who were they, and what did they do, and what kind of food did they have, and was there war and conflict? And you mentioned trade earlier, so I'd like to talk a little bit about trade. So take us back in time and kind of paint me a picture of what was going on around Tuzigoot National Monument.
Okay, well, we think the first rooms at Tuzigoot National Monument were built around 1050.
1050, wrap your head around that.
Yeah,
okay.
so almost 1,000 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
And construction continued on Tuzigoot for about 300 years or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
so as their village started to expand, they just started to add on. And towards the end of the occupation, you have these large villages like Tuzigoot. I think there's over 35 pueblos that are 40 rooms plus. In the Verde Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So Tuzigoot,
really?
yeah.
Okay.
So Tuzigoot is one of the larger ones. And there's a pueblo, at least, if you're along a river or a creek in the Verde Valley, there's a dwelling from this time period at least every 1.8 miles. So it's...
That close together then?
Yes.
Well, I guess they would have to be, right? I mean, that would make sense, right? You
Yeah.
wouldn't want to travel too far to talk to your neighbors.
Right, right.
Okay.
And the other thing is when you're along these creeks and rivers, if you want to find a dwelling from this time period, you look up. You look either in a cliff dwelling like Montezuma Castle, it's several feet off the ground, or you look at a hilltop dwelling like Tuzigoot. And there's several different reasons for that, and it kind of lends to their lifestyle and the choices that they made. So you mentioned earlier conflict with other tribes, and it's pretty common to think, and it's a valid thought that they would build up high for defensive reasons, and it's certainly an advantage to be up high. You can see people coming in and out of your area. It's harder to climb uphill than it is to walk downhill to somebody. So that has some advantages too, but some of the other reasons why we think that they built up so high is because they needed to be near fresh water, but out of the flood zone.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's some common sense working right there.
Right, right,
Okay.
and so it's one of those kind of, it's not the first thing anybody thinks of, but they were probably so in tune with their landscape and area that they could find these perfect perches to build on, do a little bit of terracing, and then have this nice village up high.
It's like the willows building up under bridges almost.
Yeah.
You see the willows underneath the bridge right here next to the station, and they've got all these little nests that are stuck to the side of the wall. They're near the water, but they're not in danger of being pummeled by the water.
Right. And then the other reason we call it line of sight living. So you have all these villages that are up on hills or up in cliffs, and you're above the tree line, above the flood zone, and so you can visibly see your neighbor. and you can figure out some way to communicate, maybe smoke signals or something like that.
Oh, wow, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's you know, it's like the telephone. It's like being able to just call your neighbor that way.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of advantages of being up high. The other thing is building back in a cave like Montezuma Castle or up on a hill like Tuzigoot. That's not farmable land. And the people that lived here were pretty heavily reliant on agriculture. So growing corn, beans, squash. They grew cotton, which is, we think that was possibly a good export for them for trade.
I bet.
Yeah. Not at Tuzigoot, but other parts of the Verde Valley and Sedona, they've actually found pieces of cloth, that's as thin as my shirt, and it's dyed, and it's the one that we have displayed in Tuzigoot is actually tie-dyed, which is pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
They needed that flat land. They wanted that flat land next to rivers where they could either dig irrigation canals or wait for the river to overflow to water their crops. And if you plop your home right on that flat land, like we look for today, that's 900 square feet that you can't farm. Right.
Exactly. Now, would it be safe to say that Tuzigoot National Monument, Tuzigoot itself, was maybe a central hub since it was so large, and you've got all these other small dwellings within a 1.8 miles from them? Would it be safe to say that maybe this was a central kind of trading area where people would bring their goods in? And
that's definitely a possibility.
Okay.
Because they had these dwellings peppered all along the creeks and rivers, you had several places to stop along a trade route. And trade routes, it wasn't just one person, say, coming from California bringing seashells or something like that. It wasn't just one person walking all the way from San Diego to the Verde Valley. Goods exchange, they traded hands several times before they got here. So you have this nice network, almost like our interstate. We have rest areas now where you can stop and rest. And just like commerce today, I think about like the coffee that I had this morning. It doesn't come from the continental United States, and it probably traded hands at least 6 times before it got to my kitchen. Right?
True.
Yeah,
Right.
so we still live that way today. It's on a global scale. It's not on a local scale, but they had similar systems that way. Yeah.
What kind of foods would they be growing? You said cotton.
Yeah, cotton, corn or maize, beans and squash, kind of like a little pumpkin. They also they cultivated agave. We found these agave knives that they would cut the leaves off. You can boil the root and eat that. They also used many plants throughout the valley for pharmaceutical purposes and also for building and fibers. So they had their grocery store, their pharmacy, their hardware store all in their front yard, which is why they built permanent structures. Like, it was a perfect place to live. So let's build a stone and mortar structure and stay a while. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Laura Van Burkhardt in studio today from Tuzigoot National Monument. It is Arizona's Archaeology and Heritage Awareness Month is going all the way through March. All kinds of different events taking place at both locations and numerous locations around the state in regards to archaeology in our own backyards. Their phone number 567-3322. This is countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've only got a couple minutes left. Again, Archaeology and Heritage Awareness Month is all through March, so take a look at some of your local history and go out there and see it. If I come out to Tuzigoot and I'm taking a tour with you, I can ask you all these questions and even more.
Oh, yeah. So you'll find one of us in the visitor center, and every once in a while we do a tour up on the trail, or we'll just walk the trail, and as you come up with questions, that's our job. We love talking about this stuff. That's why we work here.
Well, there's Walk with the Archaeologists scheduled for March 8th,
right.
March 10th, 24th, March 30th. These are the different locations around the Verde Valley. One in the Tuzigoot National Monument. There's one on March 8th and March 22nd at 1 o'clock. They're each at 1 o'clock. So contact 567-3322 to find out when one is. And then, God, that'd be so great to be able to tour. You said now Tuzigoot National Monument has a lot of items that were found that stayed local and are on display.
Right. And that's, to me, I love the trail. I love going up and looking at the rooms and sort of imagining myself in that time period. Mm-hmm. But the museum is one of my favorite parts, and I think it's because we have such a complete story just displayed right there in the museum. And you can imagine yourself holding one of those stone axes trying to chop down a tree or something like that. It's just cool. It's really cool.
All right. One more question for you. We've got about a minute and a half left. Mm-hmm. Just a small question. Where'd they go? Where'd these people go?
So the culture that lived at Tuzigoot, as well as the Verde Valley, we call them the Southern Sinawa. We're not sure what they called themselves. But around 1425, we see them start to leave the area. A lot of them went north to the Four Corners area, northeast Arizona, and became what is now the Hopi and the Zuni.
Okay.
Some of them might have stayed here and assimilated to the hunter-gatherer groups that came in to the Verde Valley. And so one of our affiliated tribes is the Yavapai Apache. Mm-hmm. So some of them, their ancestors might have been the Sinawa as well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then some of them might have left and gone south. One of our affiliated tribes is the Tohono O'odham, close to Tucson. So it's unclear exactly why they left. We think it had maybe a combination of a climate shift that might have made it difficult to farm. It could have been for political reasons. Maybe another tribe came in and made life a little more difficult for them. But ultimately, the reason why anybody moves is because they want to create better lives for themselves, and that's probably the best answer of why they left. And I think you see that throughout history.
Exactly.
People shift. They want to create a better life for their village, for their family. So sometimes that requires moving.
Laura, very good job. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me. That was fun.
Yeah. Okay, the phone number again is 567-3322. By the way, it's not a willowbird, it's a swallowbird. I wanted to make sure I corrected myself on that one.
Yeah, we have cliff swallows.
Yes.
But I knew what you meant.
Okay. 567-3322 is the phone number. March is Archaeology and Heritage Awareness. Archaeology and Awareness Heritage Month. This is Countywide. We'll talk to you again next time.
Okay.